Hello medicos, let us see the embryology of tongue. Before starting with embryology of tongue, we need to have a clear idea for pharyngeal arch. Okay, so there are 6 pharyngeal arch, out of which only 5 develops and 5th pharyngeal arch disappears. Okay. Now let us enumerate or put the number till 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Since 5th disappears, we'll put here 6th. Okay. Now let us see the nerve supply of these arches. So first let us note a point regarding the nerve supply. Okay, so the point is, I'll put it in red. It is very important. The nerve supply. Each arch give rise to many structures, and each arch has its specific nerve supply. Those nerve supply is first its respective branch, which is a main nerve supply, and then we have a branch from next pharyngeal arch, which is also known as pretraumatic nerve supply. Okay, so what are the point? Each pharyngeal arch give rise to many structures and it has a specific nerve supply. First is the respective main branch or main nerve supply, and a branch from the next pharyngeal arch, also known as pretraumatic nerve supply. Okay, so now let us see about the main nerve supply. Here we are going to see about main nerve supply. Okay, the first pharyngeal arch is also known as mandibular arch, and its nerve supply is mandibular nerve. Okay, the second arch is also known as hyoid arch, and its nerve supply is facial nerve. The third arch gets its nerve supply from glossopharyngeal, and 4th and 6th receive its nerve supply from vagus. Okay, but separate branches. So the 4th receive its nerve supply from superior laryngeal nerve, and 6th receive its blood supply from recurrent laryngeal nerve. Okay, so first let us revise the nerve supply once again, that it will give clear idea. So the first arch is also known as mandibular arch, and it receives its nerve supply from mandibular nerve. Second is also called as hyoid arch, receive its nerve supply from facial nerve. Third gets its blood supply from glossopharyngeal nerve, and 4th from superior lingual nerve, and 6th from recurrent superior laryngeal nerve, and 6th from superior laryngeal nerve. Okay, so one point which will make you easy to learn the first 3 arches is odd. 5th, 7th and 9th. These are all these are all odd numbers which gives nerve supply to the first 3 arches. Now let us move towards the arches and parts of the tongue which it gives rise to. Okay, so here in this figure we have first, second, third and fourth arch. The first arch give rise to the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. The anterior 2/3 of the tongue, this part. Okay. Now the third arch outgrows. Third arch. The third arch outgrows second, and it forms the posterior 1/3 of tongue. So third part give rise to posterior 1/3 of the tongue, and this fourth part give rise to posterior most part of the tongue. Okay, so third part give rise to posterior 1/3. I will put it in other color, like let's take the yellow. Posterior 1/3, and the fourth part give rise to posterior most part. Now a question can be asked, which of the following, I will write down the question for you. Question can be asked, which of the following pharyngeal arches does not give rise to tongue? And you have the option as A, first arch, B, second arch, C, third arch, and D, fourth arch. So the answer for this is second arch, because as you can see in this figure, this second arch does not contribute in any part of tongue. Hence the answer is second part. What second arch? What all other arches are not contributing for tongue, that is second, sixth and fifth. Why did I write fifth at the end? Because it disappears. So it does not form any structure. But these two are important, and these does not contribute or give rise to tongue. Okay. Now we are done with the structure, pharyngeal arches which give rise to the structures, different parts of the tongue. Now let us move towards the nerve supply. So sorry, wait a minute, I will draw a tongue and then we'll proceed towards it. Okay, so sorry for the distorted lines, but let us see. This is the anterior 1/3 till here. Then we have the third part forming the posterior 1/3. Then we have a second part which does not contribute to give rise to the tongue, and then we have the fourth part making posterior most. So this is anterior 2/3, posterior 1/3, and this is posterior most. Now we divide the nerve supply of tongue into 3 points. First, sensory, then is motor, and then is a special sense, that is taste. Okay. So I will put sensory in yellow like this, motor in black, sorry, sensory in blue, motor in black, and special in yellow. Okay. So anterior 2/3 receive its sensory nerve supply from mandibular nerve. Okay. Posterior 1/3 receive its sensory supply from glossopharyngeal nerve. And posterior most receive its nerve supply from superior laryngeal nerve. These are all the sensory nerve supply. Now let us see about the motor nerve supply. So motor nerve supply, whole of the tongue receives its motor nerve supply from hypoglossal, which is the 12th cranial nerve. This is because all muscles of tongue is derived from occipital myotones. Okay. So all the motor nerve supply of the tongue is from hypoglossal, which is 12th cranial nerve, because all the muscles of tongue is derived from occipitomyotone. Okay, occipitomyotone. Now let us move towards the special test. Posterior 1/3 receive its special test or nerve supply from glossopharyngeal. Okay, same as that of sensory. Even the posterior parts receive its nerve supply for special senses from laryngeal nerve. But mind my word, or listen to it carefully. The anterior 2/3 receives its special test or special sense nerve supply from chorda tympani. Now, do you guys remember that I told you about the pretraumatic nerve supply? Here is the pretraumatic nerve supply. This chorda tympani is a pretraumatic nerve supply of first pharyngeal arch. Okay. Now see, this is a tongue. This is the anterior 2/3. This is the posterior 1/3. And this is the posterior most. These are circumvallate papillae. Okay, and this circumvallate papillae gets its nerve supply from glossopharyngeal nerve. Okay, though these papillae lies in anterior 2/3 of the tongue, Then also it receives its nerve supply from glossopharyngeal. This is the exception. Though the circumvallate papillae lies in anterior 2/3 of the tongue, then also it receives its nerve supply from glossopharyngeal. Right? And I forgot to tell you one thing. I will clear it right now. This sulcus, I will erase this. This sulcus, which separates posterior 1/3 from the anterior 2/3, is sulcus terminalis. Sulcus terminalis. Right. Now, let us see the most, not the most important point, but the questions is on which the most frequently asked is, can any tumor causing pain or any disease causing pain in or on to the tongue? To the tongue can cause pain in ear? Can any tumor causing pain or disease causing pain to the tongue can cause pain to the ear? The answer is yes. Yes, it can. It can cause pain in the ear if it is causing pain to the tongue. But route of transfer of pain are different in different parts. Right. Now let us see the posterior 1/3. The sensory nerve supply is glossopharyngeal. It is present in middle ear. Right, it is present in middle ear. And it supplies to middle ear. So hence it causes pain in middle ear. The posterior most is supplied by superior laryngeal nerve. And it is a branch of vagus which also have branch in ear. So yes, this can also carry this impulse of pain to the ear. Then we are left with anterior 2/3, and it is mandibular nerve, and this nerve also has its branches in ear.